Welcome to the bell curve. There's a particular kind of nostalgia that isn't soft focus or rose tinted. It doesn't waft in like a childhood lullaby. It barges in, slightly off balance, with arms flailing. Alex Kidd is that sort of nostalgia. The little fellow, big ears, bigger sideburns, and the most determined expression ever worn by a pixelated face, has become something of a patron saint for charming awkwardness. People remember him as Sega's plucky mascot before the blue hedgehog burst onto the scene with the grace and speed of an athlete who had seen poor Alex running and thought, mercifully, no, let me handle it. Alex Kidd in Miracle World is often accused of mechanical jank. The slippery momentum, the twitchy jumps, the occasionally baffling collision detection, and yes, it's all there, presented without apology. Yet buried in those imperfections is a strangely revealing portrait of Sega dreaming big, almost recklessly big, in a period when the company wasn't yet certain of its identity. This is a defense of that jank, a celebration even, because sometimes the rough edges say more than the polished surface ever could. Let's begin with the most contentious part of Alex's resume, his movement. You tap the D-pad expecting Mario-like precision. What you receive instead is something that resembles the swaying determination of a toddler on an ice rink. Alex does not so much run as he commits to forward motion with his entire being. You ask for a small adjustment, he gives you a lunge. You request a gentle hop, he offers a soaring arc that suggests he's trying to escape his own game. The modern reflex is to call this bad design, a relic of the awkward years when developers were still discovering what a platformer ought to feel like. But consider this, Sega wasn't working from a stable template, they weren't refining a philosophy, they were inventing one. They wanted Alex Kidd to be fast, responsive, expressive, but they didn't yet have the unified design grammar to pull all that into place. So you end up with a control scheme that feels like a prototype for ambition. When he speeds up quicker than you expect, that's because he was meant to feel nimble. When his jumps sail higher than intended, that's because the designers wanted freedom, not tight leash physics. And when the momentum rests somewhere between exuberance and chaos, that's because the team was reaching beyond what the hardware could comfortably handle. The wobble isn't evidence of negligence, it's evidence of aspiration. This was Sega, mid-stride, lunging towards something better. Only Alex Kidd could look his captor squarely in the eye and say, let's settle this like champions, with rock, paper, scissors. It's absurd enough that even in 1986, it must have raised eyebrows. Yet it remains one of the most recognisable quirks of the game. Why would anyone design a climactic encounter around playground randomness? Because Sega was trying something bold. They didn't want the Mario template of bounce 3 times on a head. They wanted encounters that felt surprising, playful, and strange. The jank, once again, reveals intention. The designers were experimenting with breaking formula before a formula existed. There's a kind of scrappy confidence in deciding your boss fights should function like a schoolyard contest, and a stranger confidence still in expecting players to take it seriously. It is the sort of decision that belongs in a developing company, creative, slightly deranged, and oddly charming. And then there's the matter of collisions. Sometimes Alex is hit by something that seems several respectable inches away. Other times he phases through danger with the unimpressed expression of someone brushing past a stranger in a crowded lift. It's tempting to be annoyed. In fact, people often are. But hidden inside this inconsistency is something curiously revealing about Sega's priorities. The Master System could display more colours and higher resolution sprites than its major competitor. Sega wanted to use that. They wanted big characters, bold outlines, detailed worlds. The problem is that big sprites come with big hitboxes, and when your hero is the size of a modest bungalow, the space around him becomes electrically charged. This wasn't laziness, it was the cost of ambition. Sega prioritised visual richness over mechanical neatness. They were trying to make Alex look impressive on hardware that strained at the seams under the weight of his head. In that sense, the collision jank is practically documentary footage, evidence of a company pushing its technology to the edge of what was sane. Miracle World is a peculiar place. Cars you can buy and instantly destroy. Motorbikes that feel like they're made of meringue. A helicopter ride that ends abruptly if you so much as sneeze in the wrong direction. And item shops that assume you've been collecting cash with the discipline of a medieval tax collector. It's all so earnest. The game isn't content being a simple platformer. It wants to be an adventure, a road trip, a shopping spree, an oddball epic. It wants levels that scroll both ways, underwater physics, secret rooms, labyrinths, teleports and vehicles. If the ambition exceeds the reliability, that's because the developers were stacking ideas atop ideas atop ideas, until the cartridge barely contained them. This eagerness gives the whole game its peculiar feel. A potluck feast where each dish is delightful, yet none of them sit particularly well together. But that is precisely what gives Alex Kidd his charm. He is a mascot built from the sheer desire to impress, before Sega truly had the craftsmanship to match its enthusiasm. In retrospect, the awkwardness of Alex Kidd in Miracle World isn't an embarrassment, it's a confession. It tells us quite plainly that Sega was trying to build something extraordinary. You can sense a team reaching for identity, trying ideas not yet proven, sculpting mechanics from the fog of early console history. The result is messy, delightfully messy. The game is like an early sketch from a great artist. Disproportioned, unpolished, but absolutely thrumming with the desire to create something significant. That's why so many people remember Alex fondly. Not because he was perfect, but because he wore his imperfections openly. He's the underdog prototype of an era we now romanticize. And those quirks, those unsteady leaps, those unpredictable collisions, those whimsical boss fights, are artifacts of a moment in gaming when everything was possible and nothing was refined. Alex Kidd is often described as Sega's nearly mascot, but nearly is the wrong word. He was the mascot of a company still finding its feet, still experimenting, still joyously unsure of itself. His jank isn't a flaw, it's a signature, a reminder that creation is rarely elegant in its earliest form. Before Sonic arrived with his polished swagger, Sega's identity looked and felt rather more chaotic. And in that chaos lies the charm. Alex Kidd's adventure may wobble like a homemade kite in a stiff wind, but it still flies. It carries with it the breathless hope of a young Sega building a future. If perfection is a well-lit gallery, then Alex Kidd is a sketchbook left open on a desk, scribbled, smudged, and strangely beautiful. And that roughness, that unsteady brilliance, is something worth defending. Because without games like Alex Kidd, we wouldn't have the smooth ones that followed. The jank is part of the legacy, part of the joy, it's part of the art. And sometimes art is at its best when it's one step away from falling over.